Working on my second generation Dodge 3/4 ton Cummins diesel today. It has developed a gross oil pollution leak. I park it, and when I'm done, there is a reservoir of oil under it. I'm a little tired of it. So I crawled under the vehicle, and I found that there was a leak on the left side of the motor. Initially, I thought it was a rear main seal because there's so much oil that it just drips right to the back of the pan and drips at the lowest point at the bell housing. But after some investigation, I found the oil was coming off the side of the motor, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. So I got on Dodge Cummins forums and found, I did a search for left side oil leak, bam, and I found out that there is a tappet cover on this motor. I had no idea there was a tappet cover. And if you look down there, you can see the lifters on the side of the motor. Well, once I found out it was a tappet cover, I decided, well, that's a project that I can take on. If it was a rear main seal, probably not, but the tappet cover is not too bad. The problem with the tappet cover is that you have to remove the injector pump, and so it is an injector pump removal situation. I won't go into detail about removing your injector pump because there's lots of information out there on YouTube about how to remove the VP44 on this pickup. But there's not very much information about this tappet cover. It was leaking terrible, just going through about a gallon or a quart of oil about every 100 miles or so. Well, maybe not quite that much, maybe every 200 miles. So that's where the tappet cover was. You can see that when I removed the fuel lines, I only removed banks 1, 2, and 4 and left 3, 5, and 6. It's more of a hassle to take them off than it is to deal with them being in the way. One thing that I did is removing the injector pump. I used a gear puller instead of a pry bar, and I strongly encourage you to go buy a gear puller if you don't have one, because you're less likely to cause any kind of damage to your injector pump when you're done. Also, make sure the cotter key is in the up position before you pull it out, and you can rotate the motor by either turning the alternator or a number 15 socket on the vibration dampener at the bottom. Looking closer here, you can see that the oil leak was right behind the ECM. The ECM is pulled back there. It bolts to the side of the motor. When you're down here, you should also check your vacuum pump and power steering pump, because there's typically an oil leak there on the vacuum pump. And if you got an oil leak there, now's the time to do it. Another issue that you have is you have a cam sensor right there. Wouldn't be a bad idea to replace that, because if that goes out, your VP44 has to be removed in order to replace your cam sensor. I've never had to do it, but I should probably replace it. Also, if you have a fast system or a aftermarket fuel pump, you may as well take this time to remove your initial stock pump down there. You can see it. Do not remove the bracket, because there's a gasket behind that bracket, and if you mess with that gasket, you will cause an oil leak. So just leave. I recommend that you leave the bracket on there. I'm just going to remove the old pump. Coming out here, there's the tappet cover, and if you look closely right here, see if I can get a good view of that. There is a split right in that old gasket, and that's where all my oil was leaking. And it was leaking profusely. Right here, there's a split. Maybe you can, there, right there. See, and you can also see that this gasket just breaks. It's crumbly. And anyway, key component of this leak is that it leaks a lot. Right here's your VP44 ejector pump. make sure that when you take this off, there are 6 bolts. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 2 bolts here, 1 and 2. 1, 2 bolts there. And you really, if you can avoid taking that off with a pry bar, you should. Get yourself a gear puller, it comes off pretty easily. So I'm going to go get a gasket and I'm going to put it all back together. It's kind of a big job, but shoot, it's going to cost me about $15 to replace that and a couple hours of labor. Hope this helps, and may your Dodge Cummins last forever.